The Great Hall of the People in Beijing buzzed with a quiet tension. Inside, South Korean President Lee Jae-myung sat across from China's President Xi Jinping. This was not a regular meeting. The decisions made here could change things for all of Northeast Asia. Many countries waited to see what would happen, because the future of this important part of the world was on the line. Outside the hall, the situation was very difficult. Only hours before, North Korea had launched powerful missiles. This made everyone feel unsafe. Relations between Japan and China were also very bad, perhaps the worst in many years. The United States was making changes too. It was planning to move its soldiers in South Korea to new places. This could mean big changes for the whole region. This meeting was not just a talk between two leaders. It was a chance to make big new plans. These plans could have effects around the world. The air was full of unspoken worries and hopes. This was a moment that could change how countries worked together or how they fought. It was a strategic reset, a fresh start, with possible global consequences. But to truly understand the importance of this moment, we must first look at President Lee himself. He was the man sitting there, opposite President Xi. His story is almost hard to believe. He grew up in poverty. He joined protests for justice. He led his country through times of political crisis. These hard experiences made him the strong leader he is today. His journey helps us understand why his presence in Beijing right now is so very important. A leader born from crisis. Lee Jae-myung's journey to power was very hard. He was born poor in 1963. As a child, he worked in factories. There he had an accident that left him with a lasting injury. But he was determined. He studied hard to get his middle and high school diplomas. Later, he went to Chang'an University and became a lawyer in 1986. He started his career helping people. He was a human rights and labor lawyer, fighting for workers' rights. He entered politics in 2005, but lost elections many times at first. His hard work finally paid off. He became governor of Gyeonggi Province from 2018 to 2021. There, he became known for his new ideas and for speaking out against unfairness. In 2022, Lee ran for president. He lost by a very small number of votes to Yoon Suk-yeol. It was one of the closest elections ever. But Lee did not stop. He won a seat in the National Assembly. Then, in August 2022, he became the leader of the Democratic Party of Korea. Big changes came in December 2024. President Yoon suddenly said the country was under martial law. This shocked everyone. Lee acted quickly. He climbed the fence of the National Assembly building to lead others against this decision. The Assembly quickly voted to stop martial law. President Yoon was impeached and removed from office in 2025. A new election was held fast. In June 2025, Lee won the presidency clearly.
He took office right away, with no time to prepare. His path has been full of trouble. He still faces legal problems, which he says are political attacks. In January 2024, someone even tried to kill him, stabbing him in the neck. Through all these challenges, Lee Jae-myung has shown great strength. He is a strong leader, but also one who makes people choose sides. Now, having won the presidency against all odds, Lee faces his greatest test on the world stage. With powerful enemies at home and immense pressure from abroad, can a leader born from crisis prevent a new one from erupting? 3. A big welcome. President Lee Jae-myung arrived in Beijing, China, for an important state visit. He received a very grand welcome. A 21-gun salute sounded loudly in Tiananmen Square. A military band played the national songs for both South Korea and China. President Lee, with his wife Kim Hae-kyung, walked and reviewed the honor guard. Chinese President Xi Jinping and his wife Peng Liyuan stood with them. This special welcome showed that China thought this visit was very important for their country's plans. More than 200 South Korean business leaders also traveled with President Lee. Important company heads from large groups like Samsung, SK Group, Hyundai Motor, and LG were there. Their presence showed that this visit was much about money and trade, not just politics. It highlighted the strong economic ties between the two nations.
But just before President Lee arrived, the situation became tense. North Korea launched ballistic missiles. They flew into the Sea of Japan. This was North Korea's first missile launch in 2 months, and clearly sent a message from Pyongyang to the world. President Lee and President Xi Jinping then began their meeting. It lasted about 90 minutes, longer than planned. President Lee said it was a good chance to fully improve relations between South Korea and China. President Xi said their frequent meetings showed how important the friendship was. During their discussion, President Xi made a specific comment about history. He said that China and South Korea had a past struggle against Japan. He called on them to work together for peace in Northeast Asia. This comment had hidden meanings for problems happening today. With new North Korean missiles flying, the world watched closely. Everyone wanted to see how President Lee and President Xi would respond. Was this simply an expected challenge from Pyongyang, or did it mean that the careful balance of power in the region was about to change very badly? 4. Money and power. The summit meeting between South Korean President Lee and Chinese President Xi focused greatly on money and making their country's economy stronger. During the visit, the two nations signed 15 important agreements to work together. These agreements covered many different areas.
They included new technology, trade between nations, protecting the environment, improving transportation, and even entertainment and tourism. For South Korea, these agreements were very important. China is South Korea's largest trading partner, with trade between them reaching about $273 billion in 2024. South Korea's economy had been growing slowly, so these new deals offered a good chance to help it grow faster and become more stable. Because of this, many important business leaders from South Korea, including top people from big companies like Samsung Electronics and Hyundai Motor, traveled with President Lee to Beijing to support these talks. The countries agreed to promote new investments and to work together more on industry and supply chains. They also planned to hold regular meetings between their trade ministers. This would help solve any business problems before they became too big. Boosting tourism was another main goal, with both sides hoping for more visitors to each other's countries. This included more Chinese tourists coming to South Korea and more Korean entertainment like K-pop going to China. However, a new and difficult problem also came up. The United States was asking South Korea to limit sharing some advanced technologies with China. This was especially true for very powerful computer chips known as semiconductors. This created a challenging situation for President Lee. He had to find a way to keep strong business ties with China while also maintaining his country's important alliance with the United States.
Even as business leaders celebrated the many new deals, a quiet agreement was made about another issue. This concerned Chinese structures built in the Yellow Sea, in areas South Korea believes are its own. The two leaders promised to continue having talks about these structures. But this dispute is slowly and silently changing the map of the region. Can diplomatic promises truly resolve a conflict that is changing the geography of the sea? 5. The THAAD problem. The THAAD problem is a key issue between South Korea and China. In 2016, South Korea decided to deploy a missile defense system called THAAD. The United States provided the system. South Korea acted because North Korea was testing missiles and nuclear weapons. THAAD aimed to stop North Korean missiles. But China became very angry. China said THAAD's powerful radar could see deep into its territory. They worried it could watch their military moves, which China saw as a threat. After THAAD was deployed, China started unofficial economic actions against South Korea. These actions, though not called sanctions, deeply hurt South Korea's economy. Chinese tourists stopped visiting South Korea. Many South Korean businesses in China faced problems or had to close. Korean entertainment faced restrictions. This cost South Korea billions of dollars. Later, another South Korean president tried to improve ties. His government made the three no's promise. South Korea promised not to deploy more THAAD, nor join a larger U.S. missile defense network, nor form a trilateral military alliance with the U.S. and Japan. This eased tension. Now, President Lee Jae-myung is trying a new approach. He wants good relations with both the United States and China. He must reassure Washington South Korea is its ally. At the same time, he wants to calm Beijing, preventing economic issues. He states cooperation with the United States is vital for security, but he stresses this does not mean conflict with China. He seeks a balance to reset relations. Yet the THAAD radar remains active in South Korea, watching deep into China. Can relations truly reset when the cause of its past collapse is still there? 6. A dangerous world. The world around South Korea was changing fast, becoming a very dangerous place. This important meeting in Beijing was happening because of these big changes and the many problems in the region. In Chapter 3, President Xi talked about China and South Korea's shared history against Japan. Now, this historical comment was more important than ever. Japan's Prime Minister, Sanai Takaichi, had said that Japan might use its army if China attacked Taiwan. This was a very strong and new position for Japan, and it made China very angry. China showed its anger with large military drills around Taiwan. Japan's new military ideas gave President Xi's words from Chapter 3 a deeper meaning in the present day. Then there was the United States. President Donald Trump's government made things unpredictable for everyone. His plans for new taxes on imported goods like steel made South Korea's economy uncertain. More importantly, the U.S. wanted to use its soldiers in South Korea for more than just defending the Korean peninsula. American military leaders said that these soldiers might be used in other parts of Asia. This plan worried China and created big problems for South Korea, as it could pull them into conflicts far from home. Also, Russia and North Korea were becoming much closer friends.
They were trading weapons, with North Korea giving arms to Russia. In return, Russia was helping North Korea with technology for its missile programs. Russia and China also worked together at the United Nations to stop new rules or punishments against North Korea. This growing friendship made the region even more complicated and dangerous, creating a new power group. President Lee was in a very hard position. South Korea was caught in a dangerous geopolitical minefield. He had an unpredictable but vital friend in the United States, led by President Donald Trump. There was a very strong neighbor in China, which was both a trade partner and a rival. A nuclear-armed North Korea was constantly a threat, and Japan was building its army again with strong new ideas.
President Lee was not just leading a meeting in Beijing. He was trying to find a way for his country to survive in this difficult world. For a country like South Korea, caught in the middle of these powerful giants, was there any safe path to take? 7. Problems at home. President Lee Jae-myung faced many problems at home. It was not easy to manage South Korea's own needs while he was in China. Different groups in his country had different ideas about the best path forward. First, there was the powerful business community. Large companies like Samsung and Hyundai wanted to sell more goods in China. They needed stable relations with Beijing to continue their trade and investments. These business leaders pushed President Lee to keep ties strong with China, as it was crucial for their profits. But then there was the security establishment. These military and defense leaders deeply trusted the United States. They worried about China's growing power in the region. They believed South Korea's safety came from its alliance with the U.S., and they were careful about getting too close to China. The general public also had mixed feelings. Many South Koreans understood that China was important for their economy. However, their opinion of China had become less positive in recent years. They remembered past problems, like when China caused economic harm over the THAAD missile system. They also worried about things like air pollution from China. President Lee also faced strong political opposition. His rivals accused him of being too soft on China and said he might weaken South Korea's ties with democratic allies. On top of this, Lee had ongoing legal challenges. These issues made his job even harder and gave his opponents more reasons to criticize him. President Lee had to balance these many different groups and their wishes. He needed to keep his political coalition working together and his country united. He had to show that his foreign policy served South Korea's best interests without upsetting anyone too much. This was a very difficult task. So while Lee worked to balance big countries like China and the United States, he also fought a political battle at home. The greatest threat to his new foreign policy might not be in Beijing or Washington, but right there in Seoul. 8. An uncertain future. The meeting between President Lee Jae-myung and President Xi Jinping in Beijing was very important. It showed a path to a better future, but one that is not easy. The leaders talked for longer than planned, showing how much they wanted to improve relations. They signed 15 new agreements. These deals covered many areas, like trade, new technologies, the environment, and even entertainment. This showed a strong desire from both sides to work together. South Korea's economy needs close ties with China, which is its biggest trading partner. China also wants more of South Korea's advanced technology.
The summit was a good start, a way to bring some calm and cooperation back to the region after some years of difficulties. But this new calm is not strong. It is fragile. South Korea faces a very big problem. It needs to keep its close friendship and security ties with the United States. The U.S. has soldiers and military systems in South Korea to help protect it. At the same time, South Korea wants to grow its economy with China. This is a hard balance to find. For example, the United States does not want South Korea to share certain advanced technologies, like semiconductors, with China. Also, China is still unhappy about the THAAD missile defense system in South Korea. These are real problems that make President Lee's job very difficult. He must walk a tightrope, trying to keep both powerful countries happy. What will happen in the future for South Korea? There are different ways things could go. One way is that President Lee will succeed in his hard balancing act. He could manage to keep good relations with both the United States and China. This would mean South Korea shows the world that a country can be friends with competing powers. It would make South Korea a bridge, not a battlefield. Another way is that South Korea might slowly start to move away from the United States alliance. If getting closer to China helps South Korea's economy much more, leaders might choose to focus less on the U.S. military partnership over time.
This would change the power balance in the region. A third way is that a new big problem could happen. If North Korea makes a new threat, or if there is a big fight over a place like Taiwan, South Korea might be forced to make a clear choice. Such a crisis could push South Korea back into a strong and clear alignment with Washington, putting its economic ties with China at risk. This summit was not a final answer to South Korea's problems. It was just one important meeting in a long and uncertain journey for the country. The future of South Korea, and indeed the entire region, will depend on many choices. These choices will be made not only by leaders in Seoul and Beijing, but also in capitals like Washington, Tokyo, and Pyongyang. The world will be watching closely to see which path South Korea chooses in this complex world. What do you think will be the biggest challenge for South Korea in the coming years? Its economy, its security, or finding a balance between its two powerful friends?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world.